Today we want to talk about adding fractions. These are the steps for adding fractions. First, we want to write down the denominator. You want to check that denominator and make sure that it's the same number. If it is not the same number, we have work to do. So when the denominator is the same, you're going to write that denominator down. Then you're going to add the numerators, and then you need to reduce your fraction to lowest terms. Now remember, sometimes you might have to simplify it. So here are two examples. You want to write the 3 down first on the top one. But what do I get when I add the numerators? 3. So I'll get 3 over 3 here. Now when I simplify 3 over 3, what does that become? 1. Now you need to simplify your fractions. Don't leave them improper, and if they turn out to be a whole number, that's okay. You need to have either a whole number or a mixed number or a proper fraction as your answer. Now what about this one on the bottom? What would I get? I keep the 16, but what's on top?
13.
So this becomes a proper fraction, so this is okay. 13 over 16. So when the denominators are the same, it's real easy. What would my answer be on this top example? What's 14 plus 8? 22. So if I have 22 over 15, what mixed number does that become? It's 1 and 7/15. Okay. Yeah, just divide the 15 into the 22, and we get 1. It goes in one time, and then what's remaining becomes your numerator. Okay? So that's where the 7 goes.
We don't add the denominator.
Add it?
Yeah.
No, you write it. Remember when we were dividing whole numbers and we would just write remainder 7? So instead of writing remainder 7, because it's a fraction, we'll put 7 over the original denominator. Okay? We want to make this a mixed number. And then down here in the bottom, we get 20 over 24. And here, we're just going to reduce this down to a proper fraction. So what would I reduce this by? I can do a little higher number than 2. What number could I do? Well, we'll go into both 20 and 20. Yeah, 4. So 4 will give me 5 over 6, right? So remember, when I'm reducing, I have to use the same factor on the top and the bottom to reduce it. And in this case, I used 4 instead of 2. But if you had done 2 mean, then you would just do 2 again. Okay? So you could have used 2 initially, and then you would have to do 2 again. Now, I personally like to add my fractions like buttons on a shirt up and down, because sometimes if the denominators are not the same, I have extra work to do on the side. So setting them up vertically like this, like buttons on a shirt, is helpful. Now here, I'm going to have 9 as my denominator, but 4 and 3 become 7. So I have 7 over 9. And for the whole number, I also have to look and manage the whole numbers as well. I have 4, but I don't have a whole number on the second fraction, so I just bring that 4 down. It's like adding to 0. 4 plus 0 is 4. Okay? So sometimes it's just a better strategy to line them up if you're using your scratch paper, okay? Here I would get 4 over 8 and 5, and I need to reduce the 4 over 8 by 4, and that'll give me 1/2. So my final answer will be 5.5. On this one I would get 3 over 9, and I can reduce that 3 over 9. The whole number is 7. I reduce the 3 over 9 by 3, and I get 1/3. So my answer is 7 1/3. Now, adding fractions and subtracting fractions, the same rules are the same. Adding and subtracting fractions, when the denominator is the same, it's easy. It's when the denominators are not the same that you have a lot of extra work to do. So let's review how you would do this, and then let's do some practice. If the denominators are different, the first thing you have to do is you have to find the least common denominator. Now remember, LCD stands for least common denominator. Remember, that is the smallest number that both numbers go into. So whatever number all of your denominators will go into, that's your least common denominator. Remember, we found the least common denominator when we were doing fraction concepts by finding the least common multiple. So do you guys remember how to find your multiples? Or we need to review that? You want to review that? Okay. I can tell by your faces we need to review that. Okay. So, after I find the least common denominator, I raise each fraction to that least common denominator and make equivalent fractions, and then I can go ahead and add them. Now remember, this is the same process for subtracting. If you do not have the same denominator when you're adding and subtracting, you have to find one and you have to raise the fractions to equivalent fractions before you can add or subtract. Then don't forget to simplify your answer. Do not leave it improper. So let's go over. LCD stands for the least common denominator. That's the smallest whole number that both denominators will go into evenly. That means that it's divisible by both numbers. Equivalent fractions are fractions that are the same size as the original fraction that you had. So basically the only way you're changing it is by increasing it by the same factor. Remember, to raise a fraction means that I'm multiplying by that factor. Raising means you're multiplying to get that LCD. So these should be definitions that are a review for you. If you really forgot how to find all these things and you want a little bit more detail, you might want to go look at the video on fraction concepts again. But we will review it. Let's say that we have the fractions 1/4 and 5/6 and we want to add them. Let's do the traditional way of finding multiples. We need to find the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 6. And what we do is we write these multiples down until we find a number that they both have in common in the list. Now remember, with the multiples, all you do is you take the number, that's your denominator, times it by 1, then take it, times it by 2, then take it, times it by 3, then 4, and so on. Then you do the same thing for 6. 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3. But notice in my list, I didn't have to go very far before I found a number that was in both lists. And that is the number 12. 12 is the least common denominator for 4 and 6. Now, remember, I showed you guys a shortcut for this too. I told you, when you have 2 or 3 or 4 different denominators, what you want to do is you want to go to the largest denominator and just write multiples of that one and compare. That's the shortcut. So the shortcut to finding multiples is, in this case, it's 6, right? It's the largest. So the first multiple of 6 is 6. 4 will not go into 6 evenly, so I have to keep going. Then I'm going to do 6 times 2 for the second multiple. That's 12. Well, 4 goes into 12 evenly, and so does 6 go into 12 evenly, so 12 is my LCM, or also my LCD. Remember, LCM stands for least common multiple. So since 12 is my least common multiple for both 4 and 6, I'm going to use it as my least common denominator, or my LCD, to raise my fractions. Now, I'm going to go ahead and raise these fractions to 12. Now, for the top fraction, I'm going to be multiplying both the numerator and denominator by 3 to get 12 on the bottom. And for the second fraction, I'm going to be multiplying by 2 to get 12 on the bottom. So I raise these fractions to 12. Then I write 12 down as my common denominator because now it is. And I add the numerator. And when I divide 12 into 13, I'm going to get 1 and 1, 12. So that's all the steps. And I would just use a shortcut for finding the LCD if you understand it. If you don't understand it, you can just make a list and compare. There's another way to do this using prime numbers, because remember I taught you guys how to do prime numbers, but I wouldn't use prime numbers unless the number is going to be really big. Okay, when you have to deal with big numbers. But something simple like this, you should be able to figure out with a shortcut. So your answer here is 1 and 1/12. Are there any questions about this process, finding the LCD, raising your fractions, and then adding? Any questions? Nope, you guys get it? Okay, great. So let's do some more practice to make sure you guys have this. So what would my LCD be for 5 and 10? 10, okay? So we'll raise the fractions to 10. On the bottom, I don't really need to raise anything because I already have 10, so I'm just going to rewrite the fraction, just timesing it by 1. But on top, I have to multiply by 2 to get 10 as my denominator, so that the equivalent fraction would be 4 over 10. Well, if I add 6 and 4, I'm going to get 10. So that'll be 10 over 10. So what's my simplified answer? 1. That's right. What about for 15 and 6? What's the LCD? 30. Good. So I'm going to raise each fraction to 30. On the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 5. On the top, I'm going to multiply by 2. And so I get 18 over 30 is equivalent to 9/15. And 25 over 30 is equivalent to 5/6. Now I can add my fractions with the same denominator here. And I'm going to get 30 on the bottom and 43 on top. But I can't leave my answer improper, so what would my mixed number be? 1 over 30. Good. 1 and 13 over 30. Any questions about that problem? Nope. Okay, good. Here, I'm going to raise my fraction to what? What's the LCD for 2 and 3? 6. So I'm going to raise these fractions to 6. I get 4 over 6 on the bottom. I get 3 over 6 on top. This gives me 7 over 6, which is improper, and I'm going to have to simplify. But I also have a whole number, which is 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 7 over 6 1 and 1/6 by dividing 6 into 7. So that takes care of the fraction, but I also have to add the total of the whole numbers. And in this case, it's 8 plus 0, and that gives me 8. So my final answer after adding the mixed number and the whole number is 9 and 1/6. So sometimes you need to get the mixed number for the fraction that you end up with and add it to whatever the sum of the whole numbers are, which is this example here, okay? So we're going to get 9 and 1/6 as our final answer. Any questions about how I got that? You took the 7 over 6, you got 1 and 1/6, and then when we add up the whole numbers, we got 8. So the two together, added together since we're adding, is 9 and 1/6. Got it? Okay. Oh, what's the LCD for 12 and 10? Try the shortcut. 60? 60, right? Because 12 is the largest, so I'm going to go 12 times 1, 12 times 2, 12 times 3, 12 times 4, 12 times 5 is the only one that's going to work. So 12 times 5 is 60. So we're going to raise it to 60. And my new equivalent fractions become 54 over 60 and 20 over 60. When I add that, I get 74 over 60, which is going to have to turn into a mixed number. Actually, I'm going to have a mixed number, and I'm going to have to reduce that mixed number. My whole number is 15, because 7 plus 8 is 15. So let's find the mixed number here. We're going to get 1 and 14 over 16, 14 over 60, I'm sorry. But the 14 over 60 can be reduced by 2, right? So when I add the 15, I'm going to get 16 and 14 over 60, but I still need to reduce the 14 and the 60 by 2. And when I do that, I'm going to get 7 over 30. Now, some people like to reduce it at this point, but I reduced it on the end. It doesn't matter as long as you reduce it by the time you move on to the next problem, okay? So, in this problem, I came up with 74 over 60. The mixed number was 1 and 14 over 60, which still needed to be reduced. I added that to the sum of the whole numbers, 7 and 8, and I got 16 and 14 over 60. I had to reduce the 14 and 60 by 2, which gave me 16 and 7/30. Any questions about this one where we had the extra reducing? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Bree.
Second or the blue one?
This is the adding blue one.
This one, right?
Okay, yeah.
Wait, no, actually.
Okay? Yeah, everybody seems to be on adding. Okay. Okay, for 6 and 9, what's my LCD? 18. So on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 2, and I'm going to get 14 over 18. On top, I'm going to multiply by 3 and get 15 over 18. When I add that together, I get 29 over 18, which becomes the mixed number 1 and 11 over 18. And I can't reduce 11 over 18, so that's going to be my mixed number. Now I need to add the whole numbers. So here I'm getting 33. 33 plus 1 is 34, and 11 over 18. And I didn't have to do any extra reducing in this one. Any questions on this one? Nope. All right. So go to your packets for addition, and let's review what you guys have to do for this addition. So first you're going to finish the packet because that's where you're going to do your practice. Don't forget to check your answers. I do have the answer key in your binder that says ABE answer key. And then once you finish that, you need to do the pre-test and the post-test in Canvas right here at rtcinstructure.com, and you need to score 80% or better on those. On page 2, I gave you a little practice finding the LCD because some of these problems will not have the same denominator. So you have work to do to get the same denominator and raise the fractions to equivalent fractions. So your first problem set is to practice getting the LCD. On number 1, what's the LCD on page 2? You have 6, 2, and 3. What's the LCD for all three of those? Number 1, page 2.
6, right?
6, okay? So these should all be pretty easy. On page 3, you're going to find the LCD, but then you're going to raise the fraction. I don't want you to add anything, I just want you to raise it. So let's do number 1 together. What's the LCD for 12, 3, and 6? Okay? So that means I need to take 11 over 12, 2 over 3, and 1 over 6, and I'm raising all of these to 12 because 12 is my LCD. And so on top here, I'm going to multiply by 1 because I already have 12, which gives me 11 over 12. Number 2 here, I'm going to multiply by 4 to get 12 on the bottom, which gives me a new equivalent fraction of 8 over 12. And then I've got 6 times 2 gives me 12, and 1 times 2 is 2. So these are my equivalent fractions. So the instructions say write a set of raised fractions using the least common denominator. And remember, these raised fractions are equivalent fractions because you're going to raise everything to 12. On the same page, let's just do number 8 to make sure you guys got it. On number 8, what's the LCD for 9, 3, and 6? How much? No, 6 won't go into 9 evenly.
3.
No, 3 is too small. 9 doesn't go. 18. Okay, we're not looking for a factor, Bree. We're looking for an LCD, a number that all of them go into evenly. The smallest possible number, and that's 18. So I'm going to have 8 over 9, 1/3, and 5/6. I'm going to raise all of these to 18. So on top, I'm going to multiply by 2 and get 16 over 18. On the middle, I'm going to multiply by 6 and get 6 over 18. And then on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by 3 and get 15 over 18. So these are the equivalent fractions that they're looking for in the answer. You don't have to add them. You just need to tell me what those equivalent fractions look like on this exercise, okay? So we've done number 1 and we've done number 8, and that should be enough of an example as well as the example I gave you on the page. Let me know if you get stuck on any of them so I can work them with you, okay? So that's how you would do page 3. Page 4, we're going to actually start adding our fractions. All right? Now, my suggestion is to get scratch paper, because I did not leave you very much space here. And if you write big like I do, you're going to want some space. Line them up vertically so that you can do any work you might need to do. And the first problem on page 4, what will my LCD be? I have 8, 3, and 4. What's the LCD?
7, 8, 1.
Well, remember, you go 8 times 1 is 8. Now, 4 will go into 8 evenly, but 3 will not. Then, 8, this is a shortcut. 8 times 2 is 16. 4 will go, but not 3. And then 8 times 3 is 24. Well, 4 goes into 24 evenly. Isn't that by 6? And 3 goes into 24 evenly times by 8. And 8 goes into 24 evenly times by 3. So my LCD is 24. So I'm raising everything to 24. So on top here, 7 times 3 is 21. I get 21 over 24. Then I'm going to get 16 over 24. And then I'm going to get 18 over 24. So now that I have my equivalent fractions, I can add. 24 is my common denominator. And I have 21, 16, and 18 that I need to add up. That's 14, 15, and 2, 4, 5. I get 55. Now, can I leave my answer as 55 over 24?
No.
So I need to divide 24 into 55 and get a mixed number. How many times will 24 go into 55 without going over it? 2 times, and that gives me 48, right? But when I subtract, I have 7 left over. So my answer is 2 and 7 over 24. So that was quite a bit of work. because I did not have the same denominator. When you don't have the same denominator, you have to find the LCD. You have to raise every fraction to that LCD. Then you can write down the denominator and add the numerators. And you need to simplify and reduce your answer. Okay? So that's how we did number 1. Do we need to do another one on this page as an example?
Yeah.
Which one you want to do, Bree? Which one looks juicy? On page 4.
Four or five. 7?
Okay, she said 4 or 5 and you said 7? 7. What would the LCD be for 7? We've got some space on 7, so I think I'll just do it on the page. What's my LCD if 12's the largest one? 60, yeah. So if my LCD is 60, I'm going to have 1 and 9/12 and 19 and 3/10. Raise both of these to 60 before I add. Here I'm going to multiply by 6, which gives me 18 over 60. Here I'm going to multiply by 5, which gives me 45 over 60. Well, 45 plus 18, 13, carry the 1, 63 over 60. And this becomes 20. So my whole number is 20, but my fraction is 63 over 60, which is improper. So I have 20 plus 1 and 3 over 60 gives me 21 and 3 over 60. But can't I reduce 3 over 60? What does that become? 3 goes into 3 once and 3 goes into 60 20 times. So I end up with 21 and 1 over 20 because I'm going to divide this by 3 to reduce it. So the first thing I had to find out was the LCD, and the LCD is 60. Then I raised both fractions to 60. I took 1 and 9/12 and multiplied that by 5 to get 45 over 60. Then I took 19 and 3/10 and I multiplied the 3/10 by 6 so that I could get 60 on the bottom. Then I added the 45 and the 18 and I got 63 over 60. The whole number is going to be 1 plus 19, which is 20. So I took my whole number of 20 and added it to my mixed number. When I take 60 into 63, I get 1 and 3 over 60. So when I added those two together, I get 21 and 3 over 60, but I had to reduce by 3 before I could get my final answer. Because this says reduce to lowest terms. That means I need to reduce or simplify. And I get 21 and 1/20th after I reduce it by 3. So that was another quite a few steps, right, to do, okay? So that's what you'll do. We did 2 examples on page 4. Page 5 is some more instruction on what to do. And page 6 is a variety of practice problems. Is there something on page 6 you'd like me to do? Most of these are going to be smaller LCDs than what was on page 4. And then some of them have the same denominator, so all you have to do is go straight to adding it. But the only time you have to raise the fractions is if the denominators are different. What did you say, Bree? You want me to do one, or are you okay? This page is good? Okay. All right, now on page 7, there's mostly mixed numbers. Same sort of thing. You need to find the same common denominator. Let's just do this one up here on top. These are very manageable too because they're not going to be too big. So for 7 and 6, the LCD will be 42. Here we're going to multiply by 6. Here we're going to multiply by 7. We get 58 over 42. When you reduce that, you get 1 and 16 over 42, which can reduce to 1 and, let's see, 2 goes into that 8 times, 2 goes into that 21 times. So the fraction is 1 and 8 21s. We're going to add that to 5. My answer will be 6 and 8 over 21 for the first one. Okay? So you take that whole number, add it with the mixed number that you reduced, and you get the final answer. And I think the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. This one down here, you're going to just use 9, because 63 is your LCD. And you just write that 63 down, you add, we get 16, carry the 146, and we can we reduce that? I don't think we can reduce it. 3 doesn't work. Alright, so I'm getting 3 and 46 over 63. That'd be 21, 2 goes into that one. 23. Yep. I think we have to just leave that one like that. 46 over 63. I don't see anything that reduces 46 and 63. Can you guys think of anything? Nope. And of course, on page 8, you have some yum-yums. And what's really nice about addition of fractions is you don't have to have it in any particular order. If you're subtracting fractions, you have to have the larger fraction first. But for this packet, all you guys need to do is just add up the fractions that they want you to add up. Make sure that the denominators are the same. If they're not the same, then you need to make them the same to find your answer. Okay? So what I'm going to do, there's only 10 of them. You guys can work together on these word problems, and then if you get stuck on one, just let me know. So go ahead and complete this packet. Let me know if you have any questions on it. I will go ahead and pack this video and load it for you, okay? All right? Okay, thanks. Yeah, you can take a break. About 20 minutes, okay?